I'm Josh Harris, and you're listening to Clear and Loud, a podcast about the ideas, stories, and voices that are shaping our world. Hey, welcome back to Clear and Loud. Oh boy, today's episode it's like that movie Inception, a dream within a dream. This is a podcast about podcasting. We are podcasting about the industry of podcasting, and I'm talking today to Jacob Bozarth, who is a very seasoned professional who's been shaping this industry for over 10 years. I actually don't even want to give away all the details of his bio because we talk about that in the interview, but tens of millions of downloads on podcasts that he's produced. Thousands of people use software that he's created, built and sold businesses in the podcasting world. And now he's actually teaching a course, the Podcast Primer, that is helping aspiring podcasters start their own shows without burning out. So in this episode, we talk about the role of community in successful podcasts. We talk about his journey of learning to be vulnerable, learning to slow down, definitions of success that can take us off track. It's a really, really great conversation. If you've ever thought about starting a podcast for your business, for yourself, for some big idea that you've always wanted to talk about, you've got to listen to this episode. Jacob is an expert. He's got a lot of perspective, and he's experienced a lot of success and learned a lot along the way. So here's my interview with Jacob Bozarth. Oh my goodness. It's great to see you.
It's so good to see you too, Josh.
It's been a while, man. I'm laughing to myself because I suddenly had this moment of panic. And I'm interviewing a podcasting expert, and the nervousness of like, oh my gosh, is my mic set up right? Like, am I like, I'm so aware of every.
Oh man, that's hilarious.
Jacob, it's great.
No need to be nervous, Josh.
I'm sure you'll send me some notes afterwards about how it can all be improved. Can you believe that you have been in this industry for 10 years?
No, not at all. Nor did I think this is where I would have been. But it's been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed it. And man, I was looking at your podcast and like, you're crushing it. It's amazing. And just the space has just exploded, the number of shows, number of listeners,
exactly
what an effective medium it is. It's been really cool to have like a front row seat to that in a lot of ways, and to get to work with just some amazing individuals and work on different shows, and
right
from knocking on doors and investigating cold cases to
helping
produce podcasts for some big companies and stuff. Like it's been a lot of fun.
What do you think the driving force has been behind this like rise? Like it's really an explosion. Like we're so used to it now. It's such a big part of our lives, but
oh man. Yeah, I think one of the big appeals is like just the accessibility, how accessible of a medium it is.
Yeah.
It's like if you wanted to have a radio show or a show or a documentary, right? There's a lot of investment, like
you'd have to have like infrastructure, and you'd have to get someone else to let you in the door, right?
Yeah. So I think, the accessibility, and it's like just a medium that's so available. And then I think then whenever COVID happened, it was like, the industry just exploded even more.
Right.
Than with the rise of tools like Riverside and, Zoom, obviously, but
sure.
Ones that are specifically built for podcasting. It's become more and more accessible in a lot of ways, to the point of like anyone can really do it.
Right.
And then the tools too are just like, amazing, all the different, automations and whatnot. And like, sure, it's still hard. It's still, it requires a lot of time
Yeah,
and
it
energy
does.
and
Yeah.
effort, but it's like at the end of the day, it's something that a lot of people can do. And I also too, like for me, I'm really big on like the indie roots of podcasting.
Oh,
Like I just
interesting.
love the, like, obviously it's become more and more mainstream, but it really has its roots in like it's indie, in a lot of ways, and you can
Yeah.
talk about whatever you want and share whatever you want and share your message, and there's not a lot of like regulations, red tape type stuff.
Right.
So I think it's
Well,
it's
that's
just
the
a
something I
beautiful
was thinking
medium.
about. Like it feels like it's like in terms of like a power shift, it's this incredible shift of like who has power, who has the ability to spread a message. Like
Yeah,
it's pretty wild when you think of it that way. Like there were
it
so
really
many
is.
gatekeepers, and now suddenly anybody can, press record and then publish.
Yeah,
That's the thing.
absolutely. Absolutely. No, and I love that. I love it for that reason in a lot of ways. I think it's so great. I mean, you have obviously people like Joe Rogan and others that just have this massive audience,
Right.
and in a lot of ways I think are influencing uh our culture in more ways than some of the, like, historically, like the media, the
Yeah, like the
mainstream media,
mainstream media. Yeah.
politicians, like stuff like
It's
that. And
very
so
disruptive. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It is. It
Well,
is.
I think it's really incredible just your journey in podcasting, and I want to ask you how you got started. But first, I just want to list off some of the incredible accomplishments. I just want to brag on you for a minute, because I knew you before you went on to build all these things and do all these things, and so I'm so impressed. But in 2014, you started a podcast production agency, Resonate Recordings, and you've now worked with 3,500 podcasters, including 16 number one shows on Apple, which is amazing. And then in 2019, you launched your own podcast called Culpable, with two close friends, that went on to get over 45 million downloads and hit number one in Apple Podcasts. That is mind blowing. I want to hear more about that in a minute. And then in 2022, you started Resound, which is an AI audio tool for podcasters that automates a lot of the, tedious parts of production. And you got 13,000 creators that are using that. And then this one, I didn't even know about this, that you launched an online course, Podcast Primer, that teaches people how to like get over their inner critic and actually start podcasting and not burn out and so on. So that's like incredible. I just want to say, like,
Thank you.
congratulations on building so many businesses and having such a massive impact. But can you just take us back to the beginning? Like, when did you first hear about podcasts? How did you like start
Yeah.
down this path?
Oh man. So I went to school, to back up, like I went to school to be an audio engineer. I just really just loved like the studio environment. That there was just something so like therapeutic about being in there. I was a musician, so I recorded my band in high school, and I
Okay.
remember being in the studio and it just felt magical, right? It's just this like really chill, like relaxing environment. And then just the beauty of like creating music and then like hearing it back was just
Yeah.
such a cool experience. And so went to school for audio, and then got out of school for audio for a minute, thought I was going to go into like vocational ministry, which is how I met you.
Right. Being a pastor.
And
Yeah.
it went to seminary. And then while I was finishing seminary, one of my friends that I started, or that I went to school with at MTSU, we like decided to do a project for a friend. Actually, you remember Zach Sprouse?
Oh yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
so we helped him record like a project, just like a demo project, and it went really well. And we were like, hey, let's start like a little demo recording business. And so then that turned into some friends asking us, hey, can you help us edit your podcast or edit our podcast? And we're like, yeah, sure, we can figure out how to edit dialogue, right?
Right.
So that's really like kind of how I got into the space was through my audio background. I mean, like the first podcast I listened to was Serial, or if you've
Oh,
listened
that's
to
right. I
like
was I
Serial,
was wondering
obviously.
what your first exposure to, but I think back to that being one of the first times that I was like, wow, this is so incredible. And everyone was
Yeah.
talking about it. Like it was a
Yeah.
cultural moment.
Yeah, I mean, man, like I said, there's so many great things about the medium, but I think specifically in like the true crime investigative space,
Mm,
just the community that it rallies around for a specific purpose, like just it's been really cool to see. I think the positive impact that podcasting has had, like in our culture and on our
yeah.
culture, and obviously, more than just investigating cold cases, right? There's other great ways I think
Right.
and impacts that you've seen of yeah, so educational. And I think too, even like what I appreciate is just the expansion of having a bigger view of your world, right?
Mm,
Especially if you maybe grew up in a smaller town and it's like, wow, now you can like be exposed to all these different
yeah.
perspectives and opinions and
Right.
outlooks and like really benefit from it. Like specifically, I know for me personally, like so much benefit from just learning about like Huberman Labs is one I really like a lot.
Mm,
It's like all the just health, all the ways and understanding like the neuroscience behind so
right.
many
It's like a
different
real
things and like
education.
optimizing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I
Well,
think,
it's fascinating because you know, there's so much we can talk about, and I want to talk about business, about the medium of podcasts, and your experience there. But it is fascinating that we have this shared history in the church. And
yeah,
I was pastoring at Covenant Life. You were a part of that church. You were, pursuing becoming a pastor, and it sparks two thoughts for me. Number one is I remember that dynamic you're describing, where suddenly people's horizon is bigger, like they're more able to hear different ideas with people listening to other preachers. Like suddenly with podcasts, like suddenly like they're
yeah,
able to be like, whoa, I want to listen to Matt Chandler, or I want to listen to, at that time it would be like Mark Driscoll and, John Piper and Tim Keller or whatever. And it's a little as a local pastor, there's a little bit of like, well, boy, like, how can I compete there? But also like in a super healthy way, you're not just like isolated to one person is standing up and preaching, and this is the only voice, into my life. You can
right.
suddenly access hundreds of other teachers, and you can hear people teaching the same text in different ways. And like, I just think that's a really
Oh
interesting
yeah,
way that podcasting disrupted, even local churches.
very much so. Yeah, no, I remember hearing that as well of yeah, it's easy to like go listen to these other people and then, compare to your local pastor or whatever. But yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. And I think, yeah, it's so diverse. And I think that is a beautiful representation of like humans as in
Yeah.
general. It's like there's so many different yeah, it like different perspectives out there. And I think it really can yeah, podcasting has definitely allowed people to expand their
Yeah.
horizon and understanding and I think at the end of the day, like have empathy and understanding
Mm,
of different cultures and different perspectives on life and all other, all types of things like that. So
that's really good. I'm curious about, the process for you where this side hustle, I don't even know what you'd call it, like, hobby almost of
yeah,
of like being in the studio helping people with their podcasts, like you were locked in to this belief of like, I'm supposed to be a pastor, I'm pursuing this.
yeah,
And I just think that that's an interesting part of your journey. Like, even if, people listening, they're not interested in ministry or whatever, like we have those moments where there's like a big shift, and you think you're doing one thing, and then all of a sudden this thing that's just like this, you know in the background or on the side
yeah,
or whatever, is you make this choice, like, no, actually I want this to be the main thing that I'm doing. Like, what was that like for you to make that
yeah.
shift?
Oh man, there's a lot we could unpack there for sure. But yeah, I think making that shift for me, I mean, by the time I was like getting towards, I'll keep it short. By the time I was getting towards the end of seminary, it was very clear to me. I was like, I do not feel called to like full-time vocational ministry.
Oh,
And so,
interesting. Okay.
yeah, I think kind of just exploring what the other options were there. And
Yeah.
then specific, like I was working in I was working like a healthcare job, like making barely getting by, it's
Yeah.
like, so then this side hustle came up and I started in 2014, which was like, right. Yeah. I don't think I'd graduated seminary yet. No, I hadn't. So I went ahead and graduated still. And then I think I kind of knew like I really enjoyed the business world. I really enjoyed podcasting. I enjoyed helping people, working closely, like, yeah, helping them just get their message out there to
That's
the world
awesome. Yeah.
and overcome a lot of the like technical hurdles and whatnot that like prevented them from being able to continue or
Yeah.
to get started in the first place. And so the more that became real, like I just realized like, hey, I really enjoy this and I'm passionate about it and want to lean into that more. And so, yeah, it was a side hustle. And then I remember, so it's 2017, whenever I decided to go like all in on Resonate.
Right.
And that was, there was several true crime shows and stuff that I listened to and enjoyed listening to. And so I just like did some cold outreach emails. And one of them, Payne Lindsay, actually got back with me. So he was the host of Up and Vanished. He was investigating this show or building this show and building this audience, had built a pretty big audience at the time.
Yeah.
And he got back with me and I was basically like, hey, sounds like you could use some help. Like I'm an audio engineer. Like I would love to help you. And not in like I didn't mean that in like a negative way. It was just like, you could tell he was doing it all and he was like exhausted. It sounded like from some of the stuff. And so, yeah, he took me up on it, started working with him. And I remember telling my wife, Whitney, I was like, I really feel like there's a big wave in the podcasting space. And I feel like there's a big opportunity. And it's kind of one of those things, like if I don't take the jump now, like, I could miss out on that. Right. And there was like, sure, there was a big component of a risk there. Like we had 2 kids, the uncertainty of all that, but that's life, you know? And then, of course, right after I went all in on that, then we find out we're pregnant with our 3rd child and we're like, what are we going to do?
Gosh.
So
what was the trigger, for you? Was it ending something else, or like what did going all in on that venture look like?
So it was quitting my day job and really committing like full time to this.
Wow.
Because prior to that I was, doing the day job and then I would come home and I would be editing podcasts for I think I had less than 10 clients at the time.
Okay.
But still having to, edit their podcast in the evening. And for some of them, I was doing like other things, ancillary services, just more than just editing. And so, yeah, it meant quitting my day job and kind of going all in on that. We had like probably 2 months of runway. Wow. And I remember, and I mean, that's one of the things I'm reflecting back on and starting multiple businesses. You realize like, sure, there's a lot of things I think you can do and put yourself in the right position and like work hard. But at the end of the day, there's a component of luck and whatever you want to call it. Like there's a big component of that. And I remember like, went all in on it. So Payne I think I flipped that. Payne got back with me right after I went all in on it. And then there was, and then I just remember like the phone ringing a couple of times and like getting new clients. And I remember just being like, oh, this might work. Yeah. Like this might actually work. Awesome. Right. And from there, it just kind of grew. And like, initially I was like, I just want to provide for my family and do something I love. Yeah. And then to all of a sudden, like hiring my first employee and a couple months later. And then by the end of that year, like hiring 3 more employees and then trying to figure out how to manage people and be a, be a boss and building a culture. So yeah, I felt fairly unequipped for that, but yeah, you navigate it and figure it out.
When you think about that process of building the business, like what stands out to you as like really significant moments? Was it like hiring that first employee, or like what was the moment where you're like, oh my goodness, like this is really, this is for real?
It was. Yeah. And I think even going from like the technician, right, that does the work, like I'm editing, of course, I'm like, doing the sales calls and
Yeah.
everything, where you're wearing all the hats
Yeah,
right at the
exactly.
beginning. And then I think going from that to then hiring a audio engineer who was like, honestly, like much better than I was. So that was like,
Wow.
you find people that are better than you, I think, at like specific things. And then, like I said, by the end of that year, hiring two more people, and then moving out of the actual like service we were providing in a lot of ways to more of the like visionary oversight. How am I going to lead the team?
Right.
What's the future of the business look like? How do
Yeah.
we build processes and like kind of scale this up?
Yeah.
I would say that was a very big pivotal moment. And yeah, and then like,
Did you find along the way that you enjoyed some of that other work even more, or like now, like what do you think of your sweet spot being? Like, this is what I really love to do.
that's a really good question. Yeah, I did find myself like really missing the production component, and like honestly, that's partly why I like think I wanted to create this course. Was like I really enjoy editing and recording and like shooting and the production side of things, like
Right.
producing stuff. Um, so yeah, I think for me, whenever it got to like over 20 employees, I really did not enjoy it anymore, just because it
Mm.
was
You were so
so,
removed from the kind of
yeah.
original. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think also just like I miss working with clients. Like I really
Yeah.
enjoyed being close to the client and getting to build those relationships and like connect. And I felt so disconnected from that, to where I'm like, worrying about like HR stuff or whatnot. And it's just like that stuff drains me. And like the
Yeah.
financial side of things is like really exhausting for me. Like
Right.
the accounting and all that stuff. It's like I don't enjoy. So I think my sweet spot is kind of like that very small business
Mm.
side of things, like less than 5 employees, I would say.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's a fascinating, idea that sometimes our success can go beyond what we actually enjoy doing. You know what I mean? Like it's a funny thing to think through, like what do I actually want my life to look like? Because there's always like a bigger, more incredible version of success financially, size of company, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And it is interesting. Like sometimes you're chasing something and then you stop and you're like, wait a minute, what do I
Yeah.
actually want here? Did you sell
Yeah.
Resonate, or do you still own Resonate?
So yeah, I sold part of it. So and basically brought in a new CEO, and so she came in and is running it, which has been
Oh,
amazing.
that's cool. Yeah.
To have to not have the like mental burden there of
Yeah.
that. Like I'm still own a part of it and am involved, but more of like an as advisor,
Yeah.
cheerleader support role. So yeah, and yeah, I think you're 100% right. And as I reflect back on like, yeah, how our success can kind of like get us to a place where you're doing something you don't even really enjoy or maybe want to do. It's like,
Right.
yeah, it can go so fast. And I think there's often so many voices, opinions, and I think some are more audible maybe than others. Like I
Mm.
think for me, I reflect back and I realize like, man, there was a lot of expectations that it wasn't actually like a verbal expectation that others communicated to me, but it was
Mm.
like how I interpreted it.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I was like, I don't know, for me, I felt this expectation or responsibility or shouldness of doing, moving in a certain way, rather than like trusting kind of my inner guide or inner
Yeah.
perspective and desire of like, what do I really want, and like what do I really enjoy, and what's
Yeah.
best for me. And so yeah, as I've reflected back of like, it's forced me to slow down now, I think, in
Interesting. Yeah.
moving forward and making decisions and be like, okay, am I like making this decision, like what's driving this,
Yeah.
or this direction or whatnot. And definitely going from like a bootstrap company to like Resound, which is a VC backed company, that highlighted that big time for me, you know, because you
Yeah.
get investors and you definitely feel like a sense of like expectation and like
Mm-hmm.
pressure to do a certain thing. And a lot of times, like, I mean, maybe sometimes it is, but not all the times. It's not always like the best direction or what's actually best for the company, I would say.
Right. So tell me about this. Tell me about Resound. Tell me about this process
Yeah.
of like raising venture capital. Like, what has that been like for you?
Oh man. Depends on when you ask me, Josh.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure.
No, yeah, it was it was fun, I would say. Like we spun out. Resound was originally like an internal project that we built at Resonate, and it
Mm,
was like we're going to try to automate parts of the tedious parts of the production. So I mainly identifying like the ums and ahs, which is like an AI editing software, because
right.
that's what we spent a lot of time doing at Resonate and still do.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially like whenever you're on a podcast, and then this is a tick, like whenever I start talking about this and I realize how many times I've said and I'm like trying so hard not to say
Yeah.
and it's like impossible.
Let the robots take care of that later. uh,
Yeah, so we decided, like, you know, we built Resonate, and it kind of came down to we built a lot of different softwares at Resonate internally, and I just realized like a lot of times it was feeling like, and I think some of the feedback even I got was like it was very distracting, you know, where it was taking away from kind of the core business and the
mm,
core agency that we do. And I think, you know, often as for me, like I can chase these different rabbits and want to do all these different exciting things and
right. Building the new thing is really
get
exciting.
excited.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we decided, hey, it's probably best to like spin this out as its own entity and try to go all in on it, you know? So like
Yeah.
try to raise venture backed venture money. And so, yeah, it was exciting. I would say for me, like going through like fundraising was just a whole new experience. And I think you know, you inherit like I candidly question now, like even the whole infrastructure of venture backed. Like
Mm,
before this, like I had done the bootstrapped route.
yeah.
It worked well, but I was always like, oh, I think I want to try venture. Like I think it's, you know, there's really probably a lot to offer there. And yeah, I think maybe there's no right or wrong, but it was super challenging, I would say,
Mm,
overall. Like you have to talk to tons and tons of people, and it's very, I would say, like there feels like an unsaid pressure that you have to like really sell them over, you know. You
mm.
really, it's almost like you have to really pitch this pipe dream and almost have like a delusional belief in yourself and in what you're building.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
That's such an interesting phrase, a delusional
yeah,
belief to convince others to, invest their money in your vision, right?
yeah. Yeah, that actually came, like, was clear for me recent or fairly recently. Another like business friend, they were trying to like encourage me because we raised the first round, and then now we've kind of decided we're scaling it back and like really focused on building it as a healthy company, right? We have clients, and like we're more than likely not going to raise any more money, and like I tried to raise a lot more, and it was super challenging.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just, you know, talk to hundreds of people. We actually had some commitment come through, or committed, and then it fell through. And it was just like, you know, super disappointing and
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
hard whenever you're trying to build a business, have employees and whatnot. And so, anyways, this business friend was like trying to encourage me to like, hey, go out there. I know you have it. You have that mojo. I've seen it. You've done it before. And they were like, they literally said, you have to have a delusional belief in yourself and your product. And I was like, I know you meant that as encouragement, but like, that was actually like, I can't do that anymore. Like, I just, yeah,
Yeah. Interesting.
I don't feel comfortable, like, yeah, moving forward in that way. And like, I
Mm,
think I really value authenticity and like being true to who I am rather than, um, trying to impress somebody just to get
right.
more money. You know,
Yeah.
there's things in life, a lot more a lot more important things in life than money or raising venture.
Well, so
Yeah.
was that one of those examples of a moment where you had like kind of this internal sense of, what you would want, but there's this pressure of this is what everyone else is telling me I should do?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I guess one of my questions is when you have that conflict with what you want to do, or what I don't even know what to call it, your true self is telling you to do, but then there's these outside voices that are getting you to do something else. Like what's the effect on your soul? I don't
Oh
know. It's
man.
like what's the mental health kind of
Yeah.
impact of that, like, on you
Yeah.
over time?
Yeah. I think for me, historically, like I think probably had a lot more like internal turmoil, but I wasn't really aware of it. And so, um, in doing, in honestly, like doing some therapy and like listening to your last episode on internal family systems, like I think there was probably some of that, yeah, going on that I didn't even realize, right? It
Yeah.
was just like kind of stuffing it down and, kind of that protector part of me, which is very much like an achiever, which just like driving the ship. And so it's like, oh yeah, someone implies like you can do this or you need to do that. I think I would just put my head down and go and burn the candle at both ends
Yeah.
and at all costs, and
Mm-hmm.
like neglect my family and
Mm.
neglect slowing down and caring for myself, or even giving myself space to like, yeah, go to the gym or
Yeah.
exercise.
Right.
And so I think, yeah, that's kind of what that looked like more historically. I think
Mm.
for me now, it's super like freeing, I would say, and like it's I don't know, I just feel a sense of clarity whenever it happens, and
Yeah.
whenever it comes through of even like that's a good example where it was just like super clear. I was like, no, like maybe 2 years ago I would have been like, yeah,
Yeah.
I got that energy. I'm gonna
Yeah.
go crush it, and like
Right.
really pump myself up to the point of like having a delusional belief in
Mm-hmm.
myself. And I don't know, for me personally, that's not a healthy way for me to live or run businesses or operate, is like, yeah, having that like delusional belief. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think that often leads to thriving or prospering like in life. Whenever
Yeah.
you go through life and you have this like complete delusional belief about yourself and others, at all costs. And I think it's unfortunate, because I think, I don't know, that it can feel like in our culture and like the capitalist society we live in, that's like very much perpetuated for making more money, at the end of the day.
Well, it goes back to what you said earlier about the element of luck in building any business, whether you're bootstrapping or whatever it might be. There's an element of luck in the timing of venture capital, right? Like
Yeah.
there needs to sometimes be delusion in the VC market.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
a few years ago, people were pouring tons of money into so many different companies that
Yes,
didn't go anywhere. So it's just interesting, like that timing can be a huge part of it.
it
And
really can.
yeah, that's so fascinating. Hey there, it's me, Josh from Clear and Loud. This era of my life is all about the freedom found in being able to grow, tell new stories, and create new things. And that's exactly what I do through my company, Clear and Loud. Yes, it's not just a podcast. We are a boutique creative agency that helps entrepreneurs, authors, and big thinkers launch their world changing ideas into reality. So, whether it's crafting a website that connects with your audience, developing a podcast that amplifies your voice, or implementing systems that streamline your business, we've got the expertise to make it happen. We don't just tackle projects. We like to say we ignite momentum. We're all about big launch energy. So we work alongside you to clarify your strategy, capture attention with compelling storytelling, and supercharge your growth with the right tools and technology. So whether you're a company that needs a little added firepower, or a solopreneur who doesn't want the hassle of managing a bunch of freelancers. If you're ready to take the next big step and to turn your vision into an unforgettable reality, reach out to us at Clear and Loud. Let's hop on a free strategy call and get that big launch energy flowing. Go to www.clearandloud.com. You've got a story to tell, and we'll help the world hear it. I was just curious how this has shaped the way you now, as you move forward, or even as you lead other people on your team, or, your own kind of life philosophy. Like, what has that experience shifted in you?
Mm. Yeah. I think for me, it's really shifted, like being able to prioritize like what's important,
Mm,
and I think that like candidly means slowing down for me and kind of pausing and taking inventory of
mm,
like myself and where
yeah.
I'm at, and even just being aware of like how I'm feeling. Like historically, I was someone who uh would just like go and like neglect. Like you asked me how I'm feeling, I'm like, I have no like feeling. What's a feeling? Like that was me. Um, and so I think, yeah, just to be able to like, been a huge shift for me, is to be able to just kind of slow down and make space and create space
Mm,
for even my feelings and like who I am. And I think in doing that, it's helped me as a leader, like, yeah, care for the people that I lead.
yeah.
And yeah, I was just talking with one of my employees who has been with me for like 7 years. And, he, we were reflecting back on like, there was a time when I was like so driven by fear that I wouldn't even let us mention a competitor in a blog post. And it was like, so I
Don't
think
give
for
away
me,
that business. Yeah.
it's very much moved away from like the like whereas historically I was driven more like by fear and like very much like self-preservation mode
Mm,
of like at all cost,
mm-hmm.
um to now in general just like my outlook on life and others, and like, yeah, what it's like, no, like that's totally a very unhealthy way to live. And I
Mm,
think for me operated a lot out of like anxiety and fear rather than um yeah, like really like what's best and like
yeah.
loving other people and caring for other people. And so,
Right.
yeah, I mean, I think in my early days, like there was a very probably unhealthy work culture at Resonate to some extent, of like where I was like, yeah, I was going too hard, man, and had too high expectations for myself, and
Mm,
that bled into others as well, like how I led others
mm.
as well. So
Such good learnings. Um, I want to go back to the podcast that you produced, Culpable. And I'm just wondering, first, would you just give like an explanation of like what was the
yeah.
premise of it? What was the story you were telling?
Yeah, so I wasn't like the actual host on it, right? That was my good friend Dennis. So I was
Okay.
one of the three like producers,
Yeah.
and I was the one like doing most of the recording and like the editing and um knocking on the doors. I did a couple episodes where we had private investigators, and we went down to Key West. And
Oh my gosh.
my wife Whitney, she was like, I don't know why you did that. Like I legit thought you were going to die like going down
So
there.
you were actually
So
traveling across the country and like using private investigators and stuff.
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
So um yeah, so we had partnered. So I'd worked with Payne Lindsay on Up and Vanish season 1. So they, if you haven't heard of that show, it
Mm,
was he was the one I mentioned, the true crime
yeah.
podcast that I reached out to about helping. So in 2017, he was investigating an 11-year-old cold case in Ocilla, Georgia, and the podcast really like helped lead to arrests being made in the case. And
Incredible.
so,
Okay.
sorry, this is kind of a sidebar, but I had been helping him, and it kind of was like, it's what all investigative podcasters want to do, right? Or like their goal, right?
Yeah.
And so this podcast like grew a lot, and they did additional shows and stuff like that. And so yeah, Payne was a friend, and Donald, who's over at Tenderfoot, and I was like, hey, would you guys ever be open to like collaborating and doing a project together? And so um, my good friend Dennis Cooper and Mark Minery and I decided, like, we had this story come to us through Resonate, and then we decided like, hey, this would be a really good one. And Dennis is a super talented like writer,
Mm,
and I don't think he wanted to host it, but I was like, oh, you can host it, man. You can do it. You can do it. You got a good voice. And so, yeah, we ended up doing this case. It was a Christian Andriacchio case. It was, yeah, basically like he was found dead in his apartment, and there was just some suspicious circumstances around it for season one. And so, yeah, we went down there and like met with the family and really investigated it, and went out and investigated all the like persons of interest. And yeah, it was a lot of fun, I would say. So we partnered with Tenderfoot TV, and that was, one of the big reasons. They primarily did like most of our marketing, and I
mm,
would say like the feed drops. We got a feed drop on a lot of different bigger shows that really helped perpetuate those those listens, right? and
incredible. Okay.
and that growth. And so,
And a feed drop is for people who aren't familiar with it, myself being the first,
yeah.
is
So
just
that
that
would,
it's dropping that episode into somebody else's feed.
yeah, so like a lot of the true crime shows are like seasonal, and
Mm,
so sometimes they're not in season, right? And but they have all these listeners that are waiting around for their next season.
right.
And so in the off season, typically they'll the host might come on and say, hey listeners, while you're waiting for the next season of blah blah blah, I want to tell you about this new podcast you can listen to. And then they'll typically play
Oh,
like a clip or something of
right.
that episode, and
Okay.
then it's like, go listen to Culpable on Apple, Spotify, all the different
That's
players. So
cool. Okay.
very effective tool for marketing and like cross promotions, I would
Right.
say, for other shows that are out
Oh, that
there.
makes so much
So
sense. Yeah,
yeah,
I've experienced that. So, so really, it was like a real life only murders in the building kind
it
of a thing, right?
it
Like you
really
guys
was.
are like,
Yeah. My wife and I, we watch all those shows, and like we laugh so much because there's just so much like it's so like you're like, yeah, that really happens. Like they're
you're
they're
running around
dramatizing it a
interviewing
little
people.
bit, but like no, that really legit happens. Like the people, the fans around some of the true crime podcasts, like going to
Yeah.
some of the conferences, like yeah, it's impressive, man. There's like really a committed community out there, and it's cool because a lot of them actually like that's kind of with Up and Vanished, and even a lot of the progress we made in our investigations, like a lot of our information would come from listeners who just get fixated on this, and they're like, I
Yeah.
want to help out, and they start investigating. And like whenever you get a community of millions of people like all
Right.
looking at the same thing, right, from different
Yeah.
angles, like stuff's probably going to come up or come out. And so
That's
yeah,
incredible.
the show, yeah, the podcast Culpable, like it was a lot of fun. It was really hard. And I think as I reflect back, I'm like, I was still doing Resonate at the time, and it was super distracting for me. But I think I'd kind of gotten to a point where I was kind of getting bored with like the just like operational side of
You needed
things.
some creative outlet.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
needed some creative outlet, production and
What is
whatnot.
it? What is it like to have a show that is listened to by that many people, like 45 million downloads and number one in Apple Podcasts? Like just like, are there strange experiences that come with that? I mean, I know you weren't necessarily like the host voice
Yeah.
and so on, but does it have an actual impact in your life? Are there other repercussions like that you didn't expect?
Yes. Repercussions for sure. I think like there it's more online, right? And it's kind of like you know, I would say similar to probably what you experienced in the Christian circles, like a smaller group, a smaller celebrity, like celebrity status, right? It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, you're a celebrity so you go to a podcasting conference, of course people are going to ask you for autographs, but it's
So
nothing
did you
like
have
you
that
get
experience as a producer on this show? You're a little mini celebrity
le-
and
less Yeah, no autographs, but like,
Okay.
people coming up wanting to take pictures of you, and
Right.
like, and
Wow.
even hanging out with like Payne, who's the host of Up and Vanished, and like Dennis at some of those events. Like, yeah, there's like people that really
There's some
fan
buzz
over
there,
them
huh?
big time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So not so much for me, but then, I mean, there was just a lot of like, there was some weird stuff that like, I don't know. I feel like there's often like discussion groups that are created around these true crime
Oh,
podcasts,
okay.
and
Yeah.
like, yeah, just a lot of conflicting.
So
Uh,
sometimes those groups might not like the direction of the
yeah,
show or something, and then they're kind of
yeah,
like, yeah.
that, and then you kind of have, specifically if you're doing it in a small town, it was a lot of people from that area, and there was kind of like, you're dividing these like families, and you're kind of seeing this
Oh,
like
right. Yeah.
yeah, this like family like rivalries in some ways, right? And
Hmm.
so, um
Because
not necessarily,
they're all trying to share their version of events and
yeah,
that
and
kind of thing.
you're trying to most accurately kind of like be true, and like find that middle like ground, and
Yeah.
represent like an objective perspective on things. And it's like the media, it's like the media, I think, in a lot of ways, of like conservative and liberal. It's like
Right.
they all,
Everybody.
you always view like, if you're getting criticism from both sides, you're probably doing like, you're probably finding that middle road,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of truth there. So repercussions, sorry why I laughed on that. So we got roped into like a lawsuit, and
Oh
yeah,
no.
that was it, like they covered that on an episode of Dateline in that case, and like, it was funny. I remember, like, I never would have thought this was like a super weird experience,
Yeah.
sitting there watching Dateline, and then they literally put up the lawsuit like docs on the page, and my name is right
Oh
like
my
on the
goodness.
TV.
Did they do the
And
thing
it
where they
was such a weird
highlight it? Yeah.
yeah.
That's a
And
terrible thing.
I like literally remember like telling my kids like, look, my name's on TV, and I was like, why am I proud of this? I don't know.
It's just not.
This feels so weird.
Oh,
But
that's crazy. Wow.
yeah, it was dismissed, and it was like a lot of people got roped into it.
Yeah.
But that was super like just exhausting and stressful, just like
Hmm.
feeling like we had to defend ourselves. And even though it was like, yeah, it got dismissed. That's all I guess I'll say about
Okay,
that.
that's good.
So I don't get sued
Yeah,
again.
exactly.
But no, it was a lot. We learned a lot through that, right? It's like, um, anyone can sue anyone for
Oh
anything.
boy. Yeah,
Yeah.
talk about feeling powerless, and that the whole legal system is can be really really tough. I I really appreciate your willingness to like talk about the reality of running businesses, even like the VC experience. I have been reflecting lately on how when you interact with somebody, just like in a conversation, um, you can either spin your story like, hey,
Mm,
how are things going? You can either spin it in this, oh, look at all that I've accomplished, or things are going so great, or whatever. But then there's also the other version of it where there's self-doubt, there's
mm,
struggle. And in most interactions with people, especially in a business context, like, nobody wants to come across as weak in any way. They want they want everybody
yeah.
to be impressed, and we're making, we're making money, we're doing all these different kinds of things. I just appreciate your willingness to just like say, oh, like this is what this experience was like, or I wouldn't do this, or I'm even slowing down, in different ways. That like desire to be transparent, like, how have you cultivated that? And have there been moments where you've been transparent, where you go, oh, I wish I hadn't been that honest, or you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, that's a really good question. Yeah. I mean, it's not always easy. I think for me, it started again, kind of like whenever so like, as, I mean, no, I won't beat around the bush on it. Like, I was always kind of like therapy, like, oh, that's stupid. Like, silly crap. And like, I feel
Right.
like even in a lot of the like, uh, yeah, Christian religious circles you grow up in, like,
Oh,
yeah,
for
even
sure.
going through seminary, man, like I remember um just some of the stuff there that like now really like enrages me, like even thinking about that people believe that,
Wow.
specifically around like mental health and
Mm.
psychology and whatnot.
Yeah, we
Just at the
come
end
from
of
the
the day,
same
like
background. I mean, that was
at the
the
end of the day,
yeah.
man, it's like it's straight up spiritual abuse. Like
Mm.
I'm not going to beat around the bush,
Yeah.
like with some of the nouthetic counseling and whatnot. And like, so anyways, my wife experienced that to some degree whenever we moved here. And I was just like that sorry, is this explicit? Is this explicit
Oh, yeah, you
podcast,
can be
Josh?
a
Okay. I was
split,
like,
yeah.
that shit's fucked
Yeah.
up. I was like, all right.
No, that's so true.
And I think anyways, that slowly began like my perspective changing and being open, I think, specifically to therapy and just like mental health in general. And
Where
yeah, so
you watched your wife suffer the
yeah,
negative side of that, where instead of an openness to issues of therapy and so on, it's just like you just
exactly.
need to repent and you just need to believe the
Yeah.
gospel more or whatever it
Yeah.
might be. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's get to the root of this sin. You were abused as a child, but like, where did you sin in this?
Oh
And
my
it's like,
gosh.
nah,
Yeah.
man, that's messed up. I don't care how you look at it.
That is messed up.
Like, and not to be able to acknowledge that like there's suffering and trauma and
Exactly.
heartache that people experience in this world.
Mm.
Like, that's a tragedy. Um, and in my opinion, the anti-gospel, like, if
Hmm.
you want to go talk about that.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, where's the love? Where's the love? Where's the love in that? Sorry, get off my high horse. But anyways, yeah.
No, I
So
appreciate it.
I shared that because I started working with a business coach who was a therapist, and I
The therapy got
and
snuck
like
in. Yeah.
yeah. So he has a great ministry, or a great like I call it ministry, but like it's called Pursue Whole, and it's really like to helping business leaders. And he has a therapy background, and he's like a trauma therapist. And I didn't realize like he's internal family systems
That's
is
so
like something
fascinating.
that he
Okay.
practiced in. His name's
Yeah.
Andy Maurer. And so I started working with Andy a couple years ago, and I think that yeah, that was huge for me, just to be able to. So you were asking, yeah, about authenticity, and even just to be able to acknowledge, like, man, there's an emotional part of me, and that's okay. Like, just to be able to
Mhm.
embrace that and accept that part of myself. I think that is, yeah, that's how I've been able to like step into that like more authentic, true self, true
Right.
Jacob,
Right.
and
Oh, I
lean
love
into
that.
that and grow. And yeah, it's been like really really encouraging.
What are some of the key learnings in that business coaching slash, therapy, internal family
Yeah,
systems kind of journey for you? Like, especially in relationship to, how you approach business and so on. Like what did you learn there?
yeah, I would say one of the biggest learnings I think for me was just realizing how I was living my life for so many others, and like not really for like who I was or what I wanted or whatnot. And I think kind of circling back even to that success, and how success can turn into something you don't enjoy anymore, just
Mm,
realizing that like there were a lot of like expectation, or maybe I would show up how I thought other people wanted me to show up, right?
yeah.
And in doing so, like I was not able to show up with my true authentic self and like actually like who I am. And I think
Mm,
whenever I'm able to show up as my true self, like that's whenever I bring the most to the table, rather than trying, like I'm a 3 on the Enneagram. And so rather than trying to like be a chameleon and try to like, yeah, perceive what I think people want me to be
yeah.
for them, like just to be able to show up as myself. And there's a sense of, I think, freedom there, to do that.
What are some recent experiences for you where you find yourself really just showing up as yourself and feeling like
Mm.
comfortable in your own skin?
Oh man. Um, yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, yeah, I think even like I don't go on many podcasts. Like, go look for me out there, and like this feels like a good example of that, of just being able to show up and be myself and not feel like I have to overthink stuff or
Right.
say something a certain way. Like, it's like, hey, I can be myself and be authentic and um, have a good conversation with a
Mm.
friend. You know, it's like I feel that and sense that, but other than that,
No, I
you know,
love that.
yeah,
I love that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's really
I think it shows up most commonly like in my family, and spending time with my kids and slowing down. Like we were, you know, playing like freeze tag. Our son has autism, and I think that has really helped me to slow down a lot too, and like have empathy and understanding in a whole new way of even like as a father of just how different we all are as individuals and how
yeah.
we view like, you know, our perspectives are all different, and that's really a beautiful thing. And so like, yeah, we were playing freeze tag. He really wanted to play freeze tag out in the yard, and we're all running around, and it was just like, yeah, usually I don't have a ton of play. And so I think to be
Mm.
able to like be my authentic self and just lean into that and like um kind of slow down in those moments and not remove that pressure from myself of
Yes.
like
Yeah.
having to perform, having to achieve.
Mm.
Um yeah, and just like just do that. I mean, this course is kind of that for me. I would say I've wanted to do that since like 2018. Back like, and I was like, I just need to finally do this. And there was a lot of, you know, inner I have a lesson on like your inner critic, right? And
Yeah.
it's like that's partly because like I experienced that, you know, and I know
Right.
that on a very real way. And just being able to like, yeah, lean into that and grow. And so yeah.
I think that's so, oh, I love that you're emphasizing that and that you're doing this course. I think it's a really fascinating thing to think about this unique moment in world history and advancements in technology that, you know, even one of your businesses using AI to, you know, clean up podcasts and on the production level, but AI has exploded in the last couple of years into everyone's awareness, these powerful tools for content creation, you know, and I think they're incredible. I think we have to learn to use them and so on. But it's, you know, as someone who's a writer and a content producer, it's quite intimidating when you think about, wow, anybody can go and quickly create content, quickly write copy, all those types
Yes.
of things. But what it's made me realize is now that everybody has that capability, it's even more important for people who have a message to share that they lean into their authentic self, that, you know, that
Absolutely.
no AI model can duplicate, you know. Because if you're just trying to like be like everyone else, you're literally just going to disappear into the
Mhm.
hubbub and the cacophony of other
Yeah,
voices out there, you know. So it's like if you're not,
absolutely.
if you can't have that freedom to show up in whatever quirks you have, you know, but just being
Yeah.
authentic, it's just become even more vital, more important. I came across a post you did on social media that I was like, I'd never seen this side of you. You just bagged a turkey.
Oh.
You know the video I'm
Yes,
talking
I
about.
know. Yeah.
I'm sure your account is private, so other people won't be able to see this. But there was just like, I was seeing this side of you. You were just like, you were being funny. You're talking about this turkey. You're using this hilarious accent. And I was
Oh,
like, I'd
man.
never seen this side of Jacob before. I love
Yeah.
this. I was totally like, more,
Oh,
we need more of this content out there.
thanks, man.
Oh,
Well, I
it's great.
appreciate that. Yeah, some of my close friends, so we joke like my middle name is Earl, and so that's my like alter ego that
Your
comes
alter
out every
ego.
once in
My
a
middle
while.
name is Eugene, so I feel like I've got my own, my Alabama roots
Earl and
coming
the
out.
There
Eugene.
you go, baby. Come on, Eugene. Let's get out here, boy. Yeah, so
Oh,
yeah, no, I love hunting and like really I think for me it's I love being out in nature.
yeah.
Whenever you before you brought that up, I actually had that thought of like when's some time you feel like you've been your authentic self. Yeah, definitely that post I
When
felt like
Earl
my
comes
authentic
out, when
self when
Earl's
Earl
getting
comes
bagging
out,
a
baby.
turkey.
He feels comfortable, yeah. Um
That's so
Yeah, no,
great.
that's so good. And yeah, I think you're so right. Like, especially with podcasting too, of like, there's so like, sure, there's a lot of listeners, but there's well over 4 million podcasts now,
Mm,
and the number continues to grow.
yeah.
And, it really is important to like differentiate and set yourself apart. And I think, in like sharing your authentic voice, like you're gonna find a community of followers and an audience of
Yeah.
people that like want to hear and connect with you and
Hmm.
relate with your message, rather than, like you said, saying what you think other people want to say
Yes.
and
Yeah.
feeling like you have to put on this mask, um,
Hmm.
only to realize then like you're living a delusion,
Right.
like
Yeah,
at the end of the
exactly.
day.
Speaking of
Yeah.
delusions, yeah. Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
not gonna
No,
you're
it's
gonna
good.
end up connecting with people that you actually don't, it's not the real you, and it's just a mess
Mm,
all around.
yeah.
Um, Tell me
Yeah.
more about this course though. What's
Yeah.
what's the format of it? What does it look like to participate? Are you teaching
Yeah.
the content?
Yeah, for sure. Good question. So it's still like pre-launch.
Okay.
I'll be launching like kind of an early bird special here, hopefully in the next couple of weeks.
Oh, fantastic.
So
Okay.
yeah, it's really, designed to kind of take a lot, like we've worked with so many clients that resonate and worked on different shows and whatnot. And really I was just like, I should like take a lot of my experience and learnings, and even in working with some of these big networks that like every show they release is going to hit number one, like share some of the
Yeah.
hacks back behind that and kind of pull back the curtain. And so really it's like a 101 for podcasting course, um, designed to like, start your podcast without burnout. And I think the big thing I've seen so often is like there's a term called pod fade, right? It's like, I think it's 68% or more like don't even make it to their 10th episode, and it's like 44% have 3 or less episodes. And so it's burnout happens.
Yeah.
It gets hard,
It's
right?
hard to
And
sustain it. Yeah.
yeah, and so I'm trying to build a community around that and have this be a tool and a resource to like really help you have the resources and to kind of just make you aware of those different like common hurdles and things that I think often are reasons for the burnout or
Yeah.
reasons for not making it in the long term. I think some of that starts with like, identifying your goal and your purpose for it
Hmm.
before you just go after it all in.
Right.
So yeah, so
So are you
that's kind
teaching
of the
it?
101 course.
Are you
Yeah.
teaching it live? Are you recording it and then people just watch videos, or what's it look like?
Yeah, great question. So it's all an online course. So it will, yeah, basically be like a video course where you get access to all the lessons. I'm still like building out the specifics of what I'll do. I'm probably going to do like some office hours, community stuff around
Nice.
that,
Yeah.
and I have a few. I'm roping in a few of my friends in the space too to like hopefully just maybe do like monthly webinars and whatnot within the community, and potentially we'll take on some like help coach a few different podcasters and whatnot, and help be
Super
involved
cool.
hands on if they need
Oh,
more
I'm
help or
excited about
support.
this.
But
I
yeah,
mean, I feel like I can refer a lot of people to this because in our work at Clear and Loud, oftentimes people are wanting to start a podcast in conjunction with their business or book or whatever it might be, and to be able to have a course that we can send them to
yeah.
say, hey, go through this. This will kind of give you the basics. I think that's going to be an amazing resource.
I feel like there's a lot of stuff in here I could put into the bonus content section of my course that you shared about authenticity and whatnot.
Oh
So
man, well, feel
yeah.
free to. It's your interview, so that's great. That's great. As long as you speak it all in Earl's voice,
Yeah.
that's what's important.
Yeah, I know. I've been thinking about that. I'm like, I almost made Earl a character in the course, and I'm
Oh
still
my gosh,
contemplating it, like
that's
slipping him in there
great.
as like
Yeah.
maybe he's the inner critic, that's like,
Yeah.
what the hell are you doing, boy? That sounds like shit.
That's great. Oh, I think you should definitely do that. I think Earl could be a
Yeah.
great inner critic.
Yeah.
Um, One of the things that I am doing a lot of work on and thinking about as I work with our clients is about building community, and it's such a
Mm,
catchphrase, which kind of bugs me because everyone says they're building community, and everybody talks about the importance of that. But I really think that uh, the organizations, the businesses, the towns, groups, whatever it might be, that really give thought to that element of how their audience connects with each other and how that relates to the fulfillment of their mission as an organization, that those are the groups that are going to survive and thrive and have the biggest impact. And I'm just curious, from your different experiences with very successful podcasts, with ones that you've been a part of, or even just ones that you've observed that have done really well, what have you seen about the role of community
mm,
in making that successful? And like, just any reflections you have about
yeah.
what makes something draw people together.
Yeah, I think whenever there's like a shared mission, vision, passion, things that
Mm,
people are passionate about, I think that is like what I've seen draws people together.
yeah.
And like I said, specifically for me, I would say the ones that I've seen really have the most like visible like impact, or what I would interpret as impact, are the true crime shows, of where
Hmm.
there's a sense of like injustice, or there's a sense of like, hey,
Right.
this person was wronged, to
There's
the
a
point of
purpose
like,
that people are
yeah,
sharing, that they're all saying, hey, we want to work towards this.
yeah, yeah. So I'd say that is probably uh the ones that I've seen that have really just been a big movement. But I
Hmm.
think beyond that, we have like several other types of shows in the health and fitness space, and others as
Hmm.
well. And I think, especially, I think even more of a kind of value add, the community piece, like post COVID, right? It's like, I've been working fully remote since 2020. And there's
Mm,
something like, dude, I love being virtual, and I love that we can have this conversation virtually. But like, man, I would much rather see you in person and give you a hug, Josh,
yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah.
I think people more than ever are longing for that like connection and that community. And so I
Hmm.
think like post COVID, really, I think there's more and more of an opportunity for that. And I think specifically around podcasting, yeah,
Mm,
it really you see that. And there are meetups, and I've there
interesting.
literally are like there's podcast events, but there's also like there's a thing called Crime Con, right? And it's like literally true crime fanatics.
You're
And
kidding.
like,
They all get together, and then like
yeah,
podcast hosts will show
it's
up
a
there.
it's a big thing. Yeah, it's a really big thing. I don't know how many people are there, but we've went several times, and like we'll have a exhibitor booth, and it's a great thing. And I've met so many amazing people and friends and whatnot. And it's so cool to like I think even more so whenever you're like connected online,
Hmm.
and then you get to meet in person. It's like it's a
Oh
cool
man.
experience, right? It's kind of
Well, then
weird
you listen to the
sometimes maybe,
show so
but
differently. Yeah, you listen to the show so differently when you've had like a personal
yeah,
interaction, right? That's incredible.
right, right. Yeah, so yeah, community is definitely a big piece. And I think whenever you have that, it's like there's so many cool things that come out of that and that are birthed out of it. Um, and I don't know that we've ever done it super well. It's something I always wanted to do more at Resonate, because it's
Mm,
like we have 3,500 podcasters, and there's so much like value I think that they could add to each other, even of like being guests on each other's shows and cross promoting,
right. Yeah.
and helping figure out advertisers or like
Hmm.
monetization opportunities and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So I think community can also just be a really powerful tool. Um, yeah, just to like
To lift everybody
help.
up. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like the,
Hmm.
what is the saying of like rising tides?
Yeah.
I can't remember what it is. All
Lift
ships, like
lifts.
raises all
Yeah,
ships. Yeah.
exactly. Lifts all boats. That's great. No, that's a really good perspective. Um, two more questions before we wrap up. if you could go back in time to speak to younger Jacob, what's one piece of advice before embarking on your entrepreneurial journey that you'd give yourself?
Oh my goodness. Making me do some internal family systems.
Seriously, yeah. I didn't realize it, but that's true. Yeah. Speak to little Jacob.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Oh man, there's so many things. I think the one thing I would probably say is like slow down. Like you are enough. Slow down. Yeah, I think that's probably the one thing. The other thing I would say, which was said to me by one of my business mentors, was like trust your gut. Trust your instinct. And I think, yeah, there is just a real like soberness to that for me. Of like, there's so many times, and it's not always right, but I think in general, just learning to, yeah, trust my intuitions, trust my instincts, trust like that. There's probably a reason why I'm feeling uneasy about this certain decision, and I don't, I can, I can trust that instinct and trust that intuition and not feel like, I just need to like push that down and like,
right.
Because everybody else is saying like that's the right decision, So yeah, I think trust yourself. That would be a big one.
And what's coming next for you that you're excited about, whether it's on a business front or just a personal front? Like what do you, when you think about what you get excited about, look forward to?
That's good. Yeah, I'm definitely enjoying this course, obviously Podcast Primer. And I think other than that, like, so I have a real strong desire to like farm. I don't know why.
Amazing.
I don't even know where it's coming from. My granddad was a farmer, and I think maybe in like, yeah, just growing up on the farm, like just realize how much I enjoy that space and that world. And so I'm probably not going to be like a full-time farmer, but I've really enjoyed like doing a garden this year, and I actually like went back and helped my dad some like with some of his like he puts out a small crop, and like on some of his farm equipment, helped him like get ready for planting this year and whatnot. And that just really enjoyed that. Like
that is so great.
I think like something about just being in nature, and also just like just the understanding like the growth, like the seed, like planting the seed and seeing it grow. And like, it's just something that I really enjoy about that. And obviously I enjoy hunting, not just for like killing animals. I really enjoy being out in nature. And I think there is something really rewarding about like,
you're going back to the basics, like
hunting
just and gardening and farming. Like, that's amazing.
So like,
and I love that you're slowing down enough to actually give space to those things. That's incredible.
Yeah. I don't know to what extent it'll ever like happen, but yeah, I'm excited about it, and just starting small. I helped a friend with like some turkeys recently, like that he slaughtered, so that was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Well, Jacob, I am so glad that we got you behind the microphone. You're deep in podcasts, the podcast industry, but the fact that we actually got you on the podcast, sharing your story, it's such an incredible honor for me to get to have this conversation with you, and also just our shared history, like to see you growing as a person. Just your own sense of self and the clarity that you have about life, and then what you built with your life and your family. Man, well done. I'm just
Thanks, Josh.
I'm really just so excited for what's to come.
Thanks, Josh. Appreciate it. Yeah, it's been a joy to catch up and talk to you, and yeah, thankful for the work you're doing at Clear and Loud, and excited to see how we might continue to have this conversation.
Awesome. Thanks so much, my friend.
Yeah, man.
Thanks for listening to the Clear and Loud podcast. I'm your host, Josh Harris. Our producer is Pam Cameron, and this episode contains music by Jeremy Yaddo at Music for Podcasts. If you like what you hear, give us a boost by subscribing or leaving a review on Spotify or Apple or wherever you listen. We'd also love your feedback on today's episode. Or if you have a question you'd like addressed on a future episode or a guest you'd like us to consider, email us at hello@clearandloud.com. You can also shoot us a direct message on Instagram. Our handle is @clearandloud. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.